Hi, my name is Heather Moore. I'm a sworn and immunized investigator with the law offices of Chad Cronon. I'm making video statements for the purposes of having something visual for multiple jurisdictions that are going to I'm going to upload these videos to YouTube as a whistleblower and then send the links to multiple jurisdictions. What I'm blowing the whistle on is RICO violations that involve both major parties. The fraud schemes, the white-collar fraud schemes revolve around falsified medical records. And unfortunately, the attorney for whom I worked, I'm still working, they're using the product of my investigation, but they're not paying me. And using my intellectual properties, my story, Chad Cronon and many of his affiliates are profiting from my intellectual property, but they're not paying me anything. That's one of the reasons why they're killing me, is so they can avoid paying my salary, avoid workman's comp claims, and just a myriad of crimes for which he's trying to avoid detection. Now, his father, Butch Cronon, was on the board of directors at Orlando Regional Medical Center that knew I had cancer and wasn't telling me. They were participating in unbundling and kickbacks fraud schemes. In the state of Florida, you don't get Florida Medicaid, unless you qualify for Social Security benefits. Well, in order to qualify for Social Security benefits, you have to prove to the Social Security doctors, they have you see a psychiatrist and a medical doctor, they have to provide evidence that your disability is so severe that no amount of medication or therapy, be it physical therapy or psychotherapy, counseling, behavioral therapy, whatever it is, that no amount of the meds and the therapies can get you back to work, and that this is for over a year. You have to be so debilitated that even within a year's time of intensive medical therapies and psychotherapies, whatever they're claiming the disability is, can't get you back to work. So you don't get over on the Social Security Administration in Florida. So the only disability that they can the two disabilities that they can falsify is one, addiction, which falls under behavioral or psych, and of course other psychiatric or behavioral diagnoses. Now, this is a slippery slope because you have to have an Axis 1 or Axis 2 diagnosis, and usually those are easily, just because you have an Axis 1 or Axis 2 diagnosis like schizophrenia or bipolar, those are usually very easily managed with medication that can get you back to work. So they have to throw in an Axis 2 diagnosis or a personality disorder to make it look as though your personality, and that's where the addiction comes in. If you've got an addictive personality disorder or one of the personality disorders that goes along with addiction, they can then claim that your personality disorder is getting in the way of the medication and the therapies, so that no matter what therapy or medication they use, you have a personality that is making it difficult for them to treat you to get you back to work. And those are really the only things that they can fake. I mean, if they can't claim cancer or some other terminal medical illness, you've got to have medical evidence, blood work, MRIs, CAT scans. You've got to have some specialist in a medical field, whether it be orthopedics or, infectious disease, whatever, that would have to sign on. You would have to involve them, and that's evidence that you really can't manufacture. The only diseases that you can really manufacture evidence of is behavioral, like addiction, or psychiatric. So what they're doing is they're they're running unbundling fraud scams, where when you have a medical illness, in some patients it was cancer, with some it's diabetes. One patient has a very simple orthopedic issue that could be cured and have him back to work making $20 an hour as a construction, as a tradesman, but whatever it is, skilled labor is basically the easiest way for me to put it. But he doesn't have insurance, so they won't do the surgery. They tell him to go get Social Security, and Social Security says this isn't a permanent disability. A 15-minute surgery or 20-minute surgery, in and out the same day, and you can go right back to work, so we're not going to give you disability. So then they have them get addicted to narcotics. They prescribe narcotics, get the patients addicted to narcotics, and then they start falsifying the records in a myriad of ways to get the patient fraudulently qualified for SSI, then Florida Medicaid, and then that Medicaid retroactively pays for all that fraud. And it isn't just in the state of Florida. It's also going on in the state of Missouri, and both major parties, politicos who do oversight on federal investigations and state investigations, like Health and Human Services, the FBI. For Missouri, it was Healing Arts Enforcement. In Arizona, it was the Medical Healing Medical Arts Board, or, they all have different names in each different state. But the Congress people, the representatives, the senators, the governors, the attorney generals, are all profiting from these frauds in a number of different ways. It isn't just any one way. It isn't just because they have powerful lobbyists, like Tenet Health, Catholic Health, which has formed a nationwide monopoly and even formed a huge lobbying alliance called the Healthcare Alliance of Arizona, I believe it's called, with Banner and Honor Health, all of which are tax-exempt nonprofits. Now, Tenet and Dignity, I don't think are registered as tax-exempt nonprofits, but many of their subsidiaries are. So what these businesses are doing is they're running and now this is important because the CEOs of many of these healthcare systems that are running these frauds got federal appointments, got appointments to do oversight on fraud. So they get to investigate themselves, basically. And that was under Obama. So this isn't just a Trump issue. It isn't just an Obama issue. It isn't just a Clinton or a Reagan or a Bush issue. It's all of them have basically given these CEOs a blank check to do whatever the hell they want, however they want. And with regards to like Homeland Security and the FBI and all of those federal jurisdictions are all linked. It's not like there's a whole bunch of different agents that work for each jurisdiction. They usually let one investigator handle it, and it could be, whoever takes precedent. I don't really know how they make that decision, but those federal investigations, whether it be with the FBI or Homeland Security, whatever, they answer to the senators and the representatives. They all are profiting as well. One of the ways they profit is, of course, they get money by the lobbying, by their lobbying agents. They donate to their war chest. In other ways, the more money these health systems make, and United and Canteen Corporation, which in the marketplace are the two primary insurers in the marketplace, the more money they make, all of these politicians own stock in these businesses. So if they did oversight on the fraud, their stock value would go down. It would drop. So they let it go on so that the revenue made by these corporations, many of them tax-exempt nonprofits, goes up, so then their stock value goes up, so then they make money that way too. They also make money because they're not treating people's illnesses properly, and doing the unbundling fraud and taking each symptom and assigning it a separate diagnosis. So then they bill for the treatment of multiple illnesses, hide the real illness that's causing all those symptoms. They omit important evidence to maintain the false multiple diagnoses, then manufacture other false evidence to maintain those false diagnoses. They increase their revenue. The actual underlying condition isn't treated. The person gets sicker and sicker. Of course, they start having behavioral issues. They start dealing with depression. They end up jobless. They end up homeless. They end up and then what the doctors do is this gaslighting crap where they know they're making you sick, and there is a condition called mood disorder due to general medical condition. If you have untreated medical issues, you're going to have mood issues, and you're going to have things, going on. And they know this. And they know if they're not treating your back where you need surgery, 20-minute surgery that keeps you in pain, they know you're going to go get something for the pain. So what they did in my particular case was they falsified the medical record saying that I was just demanding narcotics and refusing to go to appointments, seeing specialists, so on and so forth, when I actually recorded the medical encounters because of their false criminal allegations and because Ferguson was blowing up. The attorney I work for is also a police advisor for Orlando PD, probably also under Val Demings. They could say I was a cop. I worked for a cop. And this was a criminal investigation that he launched. So what happens is I recorded everything, and what I recorded was them coming in the room telling me the ultrasound was fine, the blood work was fine. All of it was in my head because I was sexually abused as a child. And then said that my father was my rapist. Yes, he's a child molester, but he didn't molest me that way. And child molestation can happen in a myriad of ways. His way was he was a misogynist prick. He didn't think that women's lives matter. And he used shaming devices saying, oh, you're fat, you're ugly, nobody likes you. He was that way to my mother, and that was to justify his violence. And he basically hated our guts because he lied to her, said that he had a vasectomy, that he couldn't get anybody pregnant. He was still married to his first wife. So my mother slept with him. She was drunk. It was on her birthday in 1969. She got pregnant. He's lying to everybody saying I'm not his kid. Meanwhile, he's Native American with a head full of black hair. I'm born with a head full of black hair. And his mother's like, oh, you ain't lying about this. That black head, the hair came from her. That's your little Indian papoose right there. So he had to divorce his first wife, marry my mother. It was a shotgun wedding. His first wedding was a shotgun wedding. So in his eyes, women were the problem, not him. The kids were the cause of all of his issues, not him. He was narcissistic. He was Special Forces, Navy Special Forces under Kennedy. He was a brilliant mathematician and cryptologist, but Kennedy was a misogynist prick, too. I mean, they murdered Marilyn Monroe to cover up the fact that he couldn't control his penis. So back in the 70s, women's lives just didn't matter. I don't care what kind of an icon you were. Democrat, male, female, white, black, and men in general, I don't care what color you are, they have, many of them, all races, colors, and religions, have issues with being the misogynist, rapist attitude towards women. And the attorney that I work for, Chad Cronon, is no different. And the thing is, he's a civil rights scholar. He also was a DNC. He managed campaigns for many powerful Democrats. He was a former investigator for the Department of Justice while he worked for Human Rights Campaign, and a former domestic violence prosecutor. So his violence against me is going to be an extremely ugly Me Too campaign for him. Now, I have to cut this video short, upload it, and then make another one because YouTube only allows 15-minute videos.